more or less from the beginning. What takes place?
Yes, Paul, I think that's a good place to start. In the beginning, considered from the point of view of a dead person who is having his ordinances performed for him in the temple. And I think that's the best way to look at it, since about 95% of the ordinance work that's done in the temple is done for dead people.
All right.
So starting with the progression of a dead person through the Mormon temple, the first ordinance is baptism. And I suppose most people have heard of baptism for the dead, and it's performed in a beautiful font in the basement of the temple. It's always located between ground level. It's built on the back of the statues of 12 life-size oxen, and it is truly a very beautiful edifice, and it's performed with 2 witnesses and a person doing the baptizing and the patron who is being baptized. Typically, they like to do about 150 to 200 baptisms an hour, so it's done rather machine gun fashion.
Must be monotonous.
Well, there are interesting stories that go along with being baptized for the dead.
Oh.
They'll take these lists of 100 to 150 names, and the person in the font doing the baptism reads the names as they flip up either on a chart or on a television set. And there are stories told of people who are left where they see people walking off one at a time, spirits, as their baptismal work is done. And when they're all through and their names are all done, there's still one person standing over there. And there's no real communication, but the person is just standing, staring. And so they begin frantically to look around, and they'll find a name that's fallen down in a crack or otherwise lost. And when that's performed, that person walks off too. Now, most Mormons are conditioned to expect this type of thing. So spiritual experiences are the normal rather than the unusual in the Mormon temple.
I think this gives us some insight as to whether the Mormon temple is really a holy place at all.
Well, all aspects of the temple have, I guess you'd say, an ethereal aspect in the minds of Mormons. And they, as Dolly says, they're conditioned to look for and be anticipating spiritual experiences there. From the time they come into the church, they've heard about the temple, and they've heard stories about the spirits of the signers of the Declaration of Independence coming to the president of the St. George Temple and asking that their temple work be done. There are just dozens or scores of these stories of spiritual experiences in the temple. Perhaps you do not believe in the devil, in then that great hell, the bottomless pit, where there's a lake of fire and brimstone into which the wicked are cast, and where they are continually burning but are never consumed. And Adam emphatically says, I do not believe in any such place. And then both the preacher and Lucifer say that they're very sorry, and Lucifer asks him, what is it you want? And Adam says, I'm looking for messengers from my Father. And it's this point that the voices are heard of Jehovah and Elohim.
So what happens next?
Well, then we hear Elohim talking to Jehovah. Now, Jehovah, who is actually Jesus, has become Elohim's messenger boy. And he takes Elohim makes all the decisions. Jehovah takes those decisions to the working team, which is Peter, James, and John, the apostles, and they come down to the earth to actually carry out the activities. So Elohim sends Peter, James, and John down. Since he's a man, he doesn't know what's going on. He sends them down to find out what's going on. And they come down and they engage in a discussion with Lucifer, who tells them that he's teaching a religion made up of the precepts of men mingled with scriptures. Now that happens to be the best description of the Mormon gospel that I've ever heard, but that's supposedly the Christian gospel of the Bible. And then they report back to Elohim what they saw and what's going on. Then he sends them down again in their true identity. First time they came incognito. Then they come down in their true identity as apostles of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Before they were born.
Yes, and Lucifer, he's already told the Christian minister that if anybody comes claiming to be apostles, he's to test them by asking them to cut off an arm or some member of the body and then restore it again, to show that the people that they've come with power. And he does this, and of course Peter tells them that they don't do anything like that to satisfy the people, that it's a wicked and adulterous generation that seeks after a sign. And then he goes on to explain to the minister that the person he's working for is actually Lucifer, and the minister is shocked out of his skin. And then the minister describes to Peter that Satan has told him that the devil has cloven hoof and horns and so on and so forth, and speaks with the roar of a lion. This is the way the Lone and Dreary World sequence goes. Finally, Peter, James, and John cast Satan out of the presence of Adam and Eve, and then they go on to give Adam and Eve further token signs, and this is where we get into the area of the secret covenants and tokens with their name signs and blood, death, oath penalties.
Now, I think people should be aware as we discuss this that we are not doing this to be offensive.
No, we believe that the world, and especially Christians, deserve to know exactly what's going on, presented honestly and fairly and factually, and that's what we're endeavoring to do here, not to ridicule, but to educate the people. We feel that the Mormon claim that theirs is the only true and living church upon the face of the whole earth, in whom the Lord is well pleased, entitles the world to know exactly what the true inner beliefs of Mormonism, which are the temple rituals, actually teach, and to make their own evaluation and comparison with the Bible and with Mormon scriptures. I invite all people to compare the things that we're talking about that go on in the Mormon temple with the Book of Mormon, and to seek in the Book of Mormon any justification or agreement with these things that are performed and said and taught in the temple.
Not only that, but for the benefit of anyone who might be listening and who is considering joining the Mormon Church, it is not fair or wise for you to have to do that on the basis of superficial appearances or whatever misinformation might be given to you during the basic missionary lessons or anything else. It has been said by Richard Baer, one of our ex-Mormons for Jesus leaders, that most bad decisions are made on the basis of incomplete or inaccurate information.
Well, there were 211,000 people baptized in the Mormon Church last year, and I would have to say that probably about 211 of those would actually have joined the church if they knew what was going on inside the Mormon temple.
Well, remember that Mormons generally do not proselyte among the unchurched.
Right.
When the Mormon missionaries knock on your door, they are there to convince you to give up what you already believe, to embrace Mormonism. But at that point, you are not aware of what you are really becoming involved in when you embrace Mormonism. And we feel that the Lord has called us. In fact, the Lord has given us a verse out of Ephesians about revealing the hidden things of darkness. And we feel called upon to do this.
That's Ephesians 5, I think, 8 through 13.
In spite of the fact that the Lord tells us in Matthew 5, starting with verse 33 and going to verse 37, that we're not to take any oaths, that we're not to swear by anything at all, and that we're to let our communication be a simple yea or nay, the Mormon temple ceremony is rife with blood oaths and promises of things that we'll do with our lives.